In this video, we are now discussing the very first part of the story. And the story is the conversation, the validation, and the redirection that's going to be happening while you're delivering all of the other training stuff, the skill categories and the training categories and developing capacity and working on KPIs and assignments. But this is discussing the pieces that is going to happen in the conversation. So in this video, we're discussing the conversation first. So in the conversation, there are 6 elements that are going to be happening. You have the space, the format, the flow, the pacing, the skill, and you have the measurement. Now, in this, the reason why this even exists is because through the time of, I don't know, it's been like 8 years or something of trying to train people who know nothing about gymnastics and develop them into recreational coaches, just explaining to them what they're supposed to be talking about has taken so long to be like, this is the stuff that matters. And then let alone that, explaining to them how to deliver the information in an efficient way that doesn't take a minute to 10 minutes to have a conversation with the athletes or the students to get them to do something. So these are the pieces. In the conversation, we're trying to label, okay? Label the information. We're not trying to expand on it. We're not trying to go any further than we need to. We're going to use labels. And so I'm going to talk about these pieces on how you can label it, but it's very quick, very fast. And if you go through it in this order, you basically should have a pretty clear understanding of how everything's going to be working. There's not much more to it in the conversation. This is basically all the pieces that are going to be happening. There's some overlap, and we'll discuss that. But let's talk about the space. So the space is, let's think about recreational gymnastics right now. The space is you come over to the floor, you have 4 wedges, and you have 8 athletes, so our students. So you're in a space. So the best thing to do is in your space, identify and label the space. We're on floor, label the space. There's 8 of you, okay? They're part of the space. There's 4 wedges. That's part of the space. The equipment, everything, the environment. So there's 8 of you, there's 4 wedges. By labeling, numbering, they can do the math. They go, oh, it's probably like 2 people per wedge. And so now you have a component where you don't have to say 2 people per wedge. You can just go, there's 8 of you, there's 4 wedges, and then you can ask the question, how many of you go to each wedge? And then they can come up with the answer, 2. Now you're having a conversation. And so key point, conversation. You're labeling and you're asking them to fill in the gaps. Okay, the format then is, okay, we've labeled the space, we know what the space is, but how are we going to use the space? We're doing stations, we're doing circuits, we're doing lines. So here's the space, we're going to be doing lines. Now I know what format we're using. We're going to use stations. So we're going over the wedges, we're going to do stations. Everyone should know what that means. What is a station? I stay at my wedge. Correct, I stay at my wedge. But what is the flow? I don't know what the flow is. Right. Well, you go down the wedge, and then how do you get back to the beginning? Oh, do you run back up the wedge back to the beginning, or do you walk around the wedge? And now you have a conversation, and they go, oh, I walk around the wedge. Okay, good. So we walk around the wedge. Now we know the flow. But what's the pacing? The pacing comes down to, are you going to go every single time I say go? So maybe it's like everyone line up, stand on your wedge. First group, get ready, show me your tuck stand, and first group, go. Next group, get ready. Next group, go. Maybe that's the pacing. Or maybe the pacing is we're going to do rolling as many times as we can for a minute, so everybody just go. And so then that's the pacing. So you let the people know, the students know what type of pacing it's going to be. You're going to go on my command, or we're going to be working for a minute, and we'll be ready to go in a minute. But what are we doing? Now, all of this should be so predictable that essentially you don't even have to say most of it, because as you do it consistently, you can just point out, we're using wedges, we're going rolling, does everyone know how it works? And eventually everyone's gonna be like, yes, I know what the format is, I know what the flow is, I know what the pacing is, and they all got it because it's so consistent. If you have a new person enter your group, you're gonna have to re-explain it. And so that's why it's important to have this pattern down so that you can just constantly just hit it exactly when you need it to be like, oh, I know exactly what the order of conversation is, okay? This is also talking about the space, then the format, how we're going to use the space, then how we're going to move around the space, and then when we get to move. But now we have the question of what? What? So it's all driving towards this mystery. But what am I doing? Now the error I see in new coaches and coaches who know nothing about gymnastics is they oftentimes talk about the what first before they talk about any of this other stuff. They've removed all the mystery. Nobody cares about this stuff. They all care about that stuff. They want to know what they're going to be doing. So you're going to be going, here's the space. There's 8 of you. There's 4 wedges. And they're like, but what are we doing? I'm going to get there. And here's the format. We're doing stations. You're going to stay at your wedge. Yes, but what are we doing? I can't tell you yet. And then here's the flow. When you get down the wedge and you finish your turn, you're going to go back to, yes, but what are we doing? Shortly. And then here's the pacing. You're going to go when I say go every single time. Yes, but what are we doing? I don't know what we're doing. And so their brain's going, I see the space. I don't know how we're using it. I see the format. I don't know what we're doing with it. I see the flow. I still have no idea how I'm moving through it. And I see the pacing. I'm supposed to go, but I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Mystery, 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 mystery. Oh, let me surprise you now. Reveal the mystery. This is the skill we're doing. We're doing a forward roll down the wedge. Oh, forward rolls. Okay, good. I got there. But then it's not just forward rolls. How am I going to measure your forward rolls? And so now it's like, here's what we're doing. Surprise! Yay, we know what we're doing now. But how am I going to measure it? So then you have to deliver the measurement. We are going to be measuring the forward rolls based on how many you can do in a minute. We're going to be measuring the forward rolls based on if you have straight elbows or whatever it is. So now you have your measurement. So this is the conversation you're having. And then in the process of it, you have validation. In the process of it, you're going to have redirection in the moving when they're actually doing the exercise. Just run it through again so you can kind of see this. We're going over to bars. Okay, we're on bars. There's 8 students in the class. Okay, I have 4 bars in my area. So I come over to bars and say, okay, there's 8 of you. How many bars are there? They're going to say there's 4. Cool. There's 4 bars. There's 8 of you. How many of you get to go to a bar? 2. Perfect. 2 athletes to a bar. What are we doing? Do we stay at the bar or do we move from bar to bar to bar? I don't know. Right. We're going to stay at the bar. Okay, great. How are we going to move then through our skills? Well, that's kind of weird. I'm at a bar. I'm stationary. Yes, but which way do I want you to face? Do I want everyone facing? Because our bars are 4 bars like this. So do I want everybody facing the center? Or do I want everyone facing away? Or do I want everyone facing? It's a good question. So I want everyone facing the center. So that means everyone's going to be on the outside of the bars. You're all facing towards the center. So that's going to be part of my flow. You will go based off of time. So we're going to go for a minute. Yes, but what are we doing, Raleigh? I don't know what we're doing. Oh, sorry, we're doing forward rolls over the bar. We're going to jump to support, forward roll over the bar for a minute. Cool, but what are we trying to measure? You're going to count how many rolls you do in a minute, and then we're going to total up the entire group's number. We're going to see how big of a number we can get. That's the conversation. Once you get that figured out, super simple to just bam, 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 all the way through the stuff. And then the next video, we're going to be talking about validation and how to use validation in your conversation.